If you're anything like most seventh graders, you're familiar with the concept of a bell curve, right? We all know what a bell curve is. It's a curve shaped like a bell, much like a Taco Bell is a taco shaped like a bell. Actually, no, it really isn't. But the concept of a bell curve is really to divide up data so that you have those sort of below expectations and above expectations at the far end of the bell curve, and then the most people, the average, are all in the middle, hence the large bump up. It's the basic concept of a bell curve, and it's really interesting when you're applying something like this to what I would call brand health, especially the brand health of a toy line, because you can absolutely see a connection with a brand between the availability of tooling, which is that huge capital investment, and sales. As sales go up, tooling tends to be allocated more and more, versus the opposite, that if sales are going down or retail is dropping line, well, tooling is pulled. So, kind of the textbook example I've used, and sorry for people who've heard this bedtime story before, is this wave of Marvel Legends where Beast in the top right there is a fully tooled figure, everyone else is partial, even the Build-A-Figure. So, it's how a fully tooled figure offsets the cost of a full wave of partial. Not everyone is going to be fully tooled because that's incredibly expensive. But the more revenue a brand makes, the more it sells, the more overall tooling is allocated for the brand and the chance of having more fully tooled figures. So let's kind of look at this because it's interesting how tooling and the sales cycle are connected. Obviously, companies want to make money, but you also have to spend money to make money. You can't not tool a product or you can't sell it. So looking at things like a great example is the 1982 launch of Masters of the Universe. So this involved 8 different characters, but only, outside of Teela, 3 sculpts: the Beastie, the Furry, and the Human, with arms and legs mixed and matched. But you basically got 3 body types. Eventually, as the line grew, 1983, you got more unique sculpts like Man-E-Faces and Ram Man. And by 1987, almost every figure was a unique sculpt, didn't share parts the way they did in that initial wave. Every figure had action features and required tooling to do this, except for that kind of weird wave with Scareglow and Ninjor and King Randor. But that's a whole other video about how that wave was a misunderstanding and crashed the line. Now, let's take this same concept and now apply it to the 2000X Masters of the Universe line. So that went out the gate with a lot of tooling because it was a heritage brand that was being brought back with already an established fan base. So an investment was made in the line up front to heavily tool the first year's product because, again, you had an existing audience. But unfortunately, that audience didn't stick around. So the time we got to year 2, that's when you start to notice that the assortment is now, instead of having uniquely tooled characters, the second or the third year was basically the first year in new colors. This is a direct response to the drop in sales and hence drop in tooling availability and having to come up with SKU counts to meet retailer needs without tooling. All right, last example kind of to go over, which is interesting, is looking at modern Star Wars figures. Now, obviously, a lot of Star Wars figures are uniquely tooled, and even the original 9, none of them shared parts. But that original 9 showed up quite a lot in the first year in different iterations, be it deluxe figures like Luke's Tatooine skiff, or sand troopers used as sand troopers, Storm is sand, or Luke is a stormtrooper, etc. Han is a stormtrooper. There's a reason all of these showed up in the first year, because it was a way of saving on tooling until they knew that this was going to be a hit. Fast forward to today, with Star Wars still continuing, and obviously we get some unique 100% tooled figures like Mando there, but we also get a lot of more shared tooling. Things like Bib Fortuna's legs are shared by Lando Calrissian and Lobot, actually, or the fact that this Tusken warrior is actually a lot of Rey Jakku parts. I didn't even know that Tusken was a female. Crazy. So the way you can then look at this, taking a step back, is there's a bell curve of tooling often, or it's more kind of like a product life cycle, where tooling starts off very slow, builds up, and then has to be shared as a line declines, coming up with creative solutions to meet SKU count. And obviously, if there's an existing brand, it's slightly different. But all of this does kind of pull into a doom loop, which I'm going to make a video on next week. The idea that, well, yeah, if no one's buying it because there's no tooling, but there's no tooling, so no one's going to buy it. And it's a continuous sort of, snake eating its own tail, where the less tooling, the fewer customers are interested. All right, so we'll return to that next week. I hope you found this interesting, and thank you as always for watching, sharing, and being part of the Spectra Creative channel. If you have any questions, do leave them in the comments below, and I try to hit back as much as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.